Hi everybody, this is Nicholas at vPackets. Today I'm going to show you how I'm deploying my vCenter server on an ESXi host automatically using Docker and Ansible. I'm doing this. There are plenty of topics on that matter, but I'm doing this in order to prepare the infrastructure because I want to automate an entire NSXT environment. So the first step obviously would be to have a vCenter available and to have a stable environment. And so vCenter will be the foundation of my lab and of my infrastructure. So I'm going to show you today how can I deploy my vCenter using my Docker container and Ansible. So I'm going to show you first of all the physical infrastructure of my very modest lab. It is not big, but it is very good for what I want to do. So I have three servers. One server, ESXi1, will act as an edge and a management host, right? It will host my domain controllers, my backup for my VMs. It will host my NSXT managers, my vCenter as well, which will be the topic for today. It has 4 NICs, so I will dedicate 2 NICs for the management and 2 NICs for the data, or the Geneva, the traffic, for example. I have 2 other servers, very small servers, and they have roughly 32 to 40 gigs of RAM, right? And they have 2 PNICs. One PNIC will be dedicated to management, and one PNIC will be dedicated for the Geneva traffic, right? Everything is connected to a single layer 3 switch, and that switch is connected to a zone-based firewall, which is connected to the internet, so I can access my lab remotely if I need to. So here is how my ESXi1 is configured. It is a plain ESXi. I have vmk0, right? That is connected to VLAN 100. I also have a plain, a very basic port group on my vSwitch0 that will be used to connect my domain controller and my Ubuntu virtual machine, right? And these two, the management network port group and the VM network port group will both use vmNIC 0 and 1. vmNIC 2 and 3 are currently not used, and we will see a little bit later how can we migrate them, because we will also create a distributed vSwitch later on in a future video, right? So for now, I only have these 2 PNICs connected to the network, and this is it. The two other hosts, pretty much the same configuration, but I don't have any virtual machine running on them at the moment. And I will have some virtual machine running on them, but very much later on when I will have some NSXT managers configured, when the tier 1 will be configured, when the segment, when the overlay will be ready, etc., etc. So for now, no configuration needed on them. I will just register them to the vCenter that we will deploy here. And as you can see, the vmk0 is using both vmNIC 0 and 1 at the moment for redundancy, but only one vmNIC will be used for the management network a little bit later on. So what are we going to do here as of today? Today we are going to use my laptop, which I'm recording this video on today. We are going to use Docker and my Ansible container, right, running on Docker, running on my Mac, and we will use that in order to push the vCenter OVA to the ESXi host, number 1, right? So I created 4 playbooks that I will invoke using a single master playbook, if I can say. Playbook 1 will deploy the vCenter. Playbook 2 will configure all the basic objects on this same vCenter. The playbook number 3 will be in charge of adding the host 1, 2, and 3 into the vCenter. And then the playbook number 4 will add some NFS datastore that is already sitting on my network, on my NAS, to this host, so that this host can leverage that storage. So with that being said, let's get started and let me show you how this is done. So this is the current state of my ESXi. You see, I have my domain controller, I have my Ubuntu, everything is reachable. My domain controller will act as a DNS server, right? And as I mentioned, I have a single vSwitch, right, with the management network and the VM network. So two different port groups, one for the management and one for the virtual machine, even though everything is on the same VLAN as of now. Let me show you the code. So this is the structure of the code. I have the deploy.yaml file, which will be the playbook that we will invoke in Ansible. So we will do an Ansible playbook, well, an Ansible-playbook deploy.yaml, right, in order to launch the automation of our vCenter deployment. But first it will ask us for four parameters, because I don't want these parameters to be hard-coded in any YAML file. It's a password. Well, the first one is the password for the ESXi. The second one is the password for the vCenter, and then the licenses. And I don't want this variable to be hard-coded anyway, right? So I have them handy, and as you can see here, I'm saying, yes, I want them private, so that I want them to, when I will be typing them, when Ansible will ask me for these variables, I don't want Ansible to give me back the output of what am I typing on the keyboard. So I will keep them private. And with that being said, what I will do here is that I will make them global. I will make this variable global because I want this variable to be reused into other playbooks if I need to, right? Here you can see that I have an answer file.yaml. So this is the variable files that I will use in order to pass all the parameters to Ansible. So I have my playbooks, and for example here you see the vCenter username, and it's not, I didn't type root or something else, right? I'm specifying another variable. So I'm telling Ansible to use the vCenter _ username variable in order to populate and to use the username field, so which will be here. So the answer file, I'm specifying everything, all the variables that are needed into all of my playbooks are here on this answer file. And let's start with the first playbook. So as I mentioned, the first playbook that will be run is the playbook number 1, deploy vCSA.yaml. So this file, right? This playbook will be in charge of pushing and deploying the VCSA OVA on the ESXi host, right? So what do I need to do in order to do that? I need to be knowledgeable about the following things: the host name and the IP address of the ESXi host. Which ESXi host do I want this OVA to be deployed? I need to log in to that ESXi host in order to deploy an OVA, right? So I need to have the credentials. I need to be knowledgeable about the credentials, the username and the password. And the username here will be the username that I'm specifying here. So ESXi, as you can see, ESXi username here, I'm telling Ansible to look for the variable ESXi username in the variable files, answer file.yaml. Here, ESXi password, remember, it will check into these variables because this ESXi password is not specified in the answer file. It is specified manually when I will type it before the playbook. All the playbooks are being run, and I'm doing that for all the variables. So same for the OVF. The OVF actually, VCSA OVA file, which is here on this folder, and this is the path of the file, right? And I will show you then on my. So this file needs to be accessible by Ansible. One parameter that is very important is the injectorvf environment, right? Which is set to true. Why is that? Because if I don't have that, let's say for example, if I have false here, all these variables all these properties that I want to pass to the into the OVA that is being deployed, they are the customs, right? They match my environment, they match my need. If I type false here, these properties won't be passed. So I won't have my IP address configured, I won't have my gateway or my networking settings, my username and password. Everything that is here won't be passed into the deployment. So, right. So here, the data store where the VCSA OVA will be pushed. What's the location of the VMDK and all the VMware information that are needed in order to run the virtual machine. And here, the data store will be on my Synology NFS data store, which is already reachable just for my ESX number 1. ESXi number 2 and 3, they don't have access to that data store yet, and we will use Ansible to make that data store available for them. Right, so here I have plenty of properties, and you might be like, hey Nicholas, how do I get these properties? So these properties here are specific to the OVF module. So the vmwaredeployovf, it's a module that is embedded into Ansible. That is embedded into Ansible. But that OVF module needs some properties in order to deploy your OVF file. So when you decompress your OVA, you will have a bunch of files. You will have the VMDK, you will have the OVF, etc. And there is one file right here, the OVF file, which is an XML file, and it will give you all the parameters that are able to be passed in order to specify which settings do you want your OVF to be deployed. For example, the network configuration. So the network IP address, you will need to pass these parameters into the properties, so that you can specify your own IP address when you want to deploy it. You can deploy, you can use the IP address properties, the gateway, DNS, the pinning reports, the username, the password. So all these parameters are here, and I took these parameters from the file, and I specify the parameters based on what I need. And with that being said, I will, so that I just have to deploy once, and all the parameters that I wanted are automatically configured. When the OVA will be pushed, right, I will wait 40 minutes, because this is roughly the time that my old server needs to bring vCenter to life. You have other methods. I don't want to use these other methods right now, because I want to be this video to be short and very simple. You could use the vCenter API and log in, or wait for information to be more specific in order to see if a vCenter is healthy or not. So here we will deploy, and we won't do any verification. We will just pause 40 minutes, and after these 40 minutes, the second playbook will be flagged as a success, and it will be able to resume with the other playbooks. So the playbook number 2, basic config. As you can see, I'm reusing the username and the password that I've used a bit earlier in the presentation. So I'm still using the answer file.yaml, which you are not aware of. And here, what I will do is that I will create a new data center. I want to add a new data center into my vCenter. And the name of the data center is specified here, right, in that field, data center name. As you can see here, data center name in the answer file equals to ATX-01. After that, I will create 2 clusters in that data center. I will create a management and edge the cluster, and I will create a compute cluster, right? This is the names of the 2 clusters. I will also create some host folder and some VM folders into the vCenter. And as you can see here, I'm just changing the Ansible module name. So here I'm using the vCenter folder. And something that is really good is that, for example, if I have the vCenter module with VS Code, I just have to click here. It will redirect me to the actual configuration, which is really, really helpful. And I will also create 2 VM folders for my tenant. Right now, it won't be useful, but later on in my lab, it will be very useful because I want to push my VM into the right folder. So, and as I told you, I want to prepare the infrastructure before going to deploy everything for NSX. So my VM folder will be there when I deploy NSX, and when I deploy my virtual machine for my tenants, the VM folder will already be there. So I just have to specify that VM folders in my code. Right. Third playbook, which is the addhost. What are we going to do here? So now we have vCenter up and running. We have the basic configuration with all the folders. Now we need to have some hosts. We need to have 3 hosts. Do you remember? We need to have the host number 1, the host number 2, and the host number 3. We need to add them to the vCenter. So this is exactly what we are going to do here with the VMware host module. Again, the documentation is available with 1 click. And I'm specifying the name of the vCenter, right? The data center name and the cluster, because the host must belong to a cluster and to a data center when I add this host to the vCenter. All right, so the ESXi1, that's the code for ESXi2, and that's the code for ESXi3. All right, here now I'm going to, now that I have the VCSA deployed, I have the host. Now I need to apply some license. So I will. You remember here in the at the beginning of the video, I said that I need to push some license to my vCenter and to my vSphere environment. So this is what we are going to do here with these 2 tasks. We're gonna license the vCenter and the vSphere host. Right. So that's how we are going to push the license for the vCenter, and this is how we are going to push the license for the ESXi host. I could have done differently again with some loops and simplify. Well, maybe not simplify. Yes, maybe decrease the number of line of code. But I just wanted to show you very easily how this is done, and this might be useful for people that don't know Ansible that well. So maybe in a later video I can show you what can we do with iteration through variable and list, etc., etc. Okay, once it is done, we're gonna invoke the last playbook, which will be playbook number 4, storage. And what I want to do here, I just want to mount an NFS data store to my ESXi 2 and 3. Again, I'm using another module, the VMware host data store module, and I need to specify obviously the vCenter, right? The data store name, okay, and the path of my NFS, right? So and the path and the IP of my NFS directory mount. All right, so now we can see. So as you can see here, we only have two virtual machines, data center or domain controller 1 and Ubuntu. So I'm gonna. All right, so I'm gonna connect to my container. So is my container running? Yes, my container is running. So I'm connected to my container. All right, I'm connected to my container now, and as you can see, I have my Ansible up and running. I'm using version 2.9.11. All right, and I'm not sure if you remember, but let's take a look on the OVA first. So here, as you can see, I had my OVA from vmware.com, right? But in order to deploy that OVA and OVF and all the files to my ESXi host, I need to decompress that OVA. And when you want to decompress that OVA, you just need to do a tar xvf on that OVA file, right? And it will decompress all the files here into it will decompress all the files, and then you will be able to use to use them. So let's do it. All right, so this is what I have. Okay, right, I have my and I will invoke my deploy.yaml file. So as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I do an Ansible playbook, deploy.yaml. And now, if you remember, it will ask me for the ESXi password. And I want that variable to be private. So if I type, I don't see anything. So now I will type the right password. And it is also asking me for the vCenter password. And what's the license? So I'm giving him the license that I want to use for the vCenter, and the license for the vSphere ESXi host. So now, as you can see, the OVA is being deployed. So it created a server vCenter, right? And so the disks are being deployed. The networking is not yet deployed, right? So we're gonna wait. We will need to wait, and we can see that we also have that we already passed the number of CPU and memory that we need. By that, how did we do that? If you remember correctly, in the deploy VCSA, right? The deployment option value, the VSS size variable in the answer file was small, tiny. So it was tiny. So if we check here, tiny, so deployment option value, right, tiny here, exactly. So tiny here, the description says, okay, it's going to be deployed, it will be configured with 2 vCPUs, 10 gig of RAM, and there is typo here, I guess, in the vmwaredeployovf file because it's not 10. What my ESXi is reporting is more 12. So good. And we're gonna pause the video and see when it's done, and we're gonna resume the video when the configuration is done. Quick update here: the vCenter appliance has been deployed, and you can see. So now we have 3 virtual machines up and running on this server. But so the vCenter, you can see it has been up since a few minutes now. So yeah, approximately 2 minutes. So it is still processing. So we will need to wait approximately, as I said, 30 to 40 minutes in my environment in order to have the vCenter ready. So I'll pause the video and I will fast forward so that you guys don't waste your time. Thank you. Quick update here in the lab. So the VCSA is now deployed. You can see, we can see here on the console, it has been deployed. It is showing the FQDN that I've chosen in the ENSO file, right, with the right IP address. We can see the size, so it is using 2 vCPU and 12 gig of memory, right? And as we can see, we get a big spike in the CPU for about 25 minutes approximately, and now it is idle, so it means that the deployment is over. So we can check. So as you can see, I managed to log into that vCenter, but no configuration has been done. Absolutely no configuration has been done. It is running the right version, and I don't have any license. I don't have any cluster. I don't have any host. I don't have any VM running on that vCenter. So we will wait a little bit while the other playbooks are being invoked. And we will resume and we'll show in real time what's going on. So as you can see here, now the other playbook are being invoked, and the entire infrastructure is being deployed. So as you can see here, we deployed a data center, ATX-01. And within that data center, we are also creating 2 folders, ATX01 compute, ATX01 edge, and also 2 clusters. One cluster for the management and edge, where SRV ESXi01 will be hosted, and a compute cluster where we will have ESXi2 and ESXi3 as they are being connected to the vCenter. Right. So we got host 1 that has been added, host 2, host 3, and I guess the license, you see, the licenses are being installed as well. And the data store, we can see the data store is being added to ESXi 3 and 4, which concludes the deployment for this lab. So we have everything, and all the folders are being installed. And the next step would be to move these 3 VM into the data center infrastructure, for example, folder. All right, folks, this concludes my first video on YouTube. This video was all about Ansible and how can we deploy a vCenter appliance into an ESXi host with Ansible, obviously. The next series of video will be all about automation and how can we deploy and operate and maybe troubleshoot NSXT using infrastructure as code. So stay tuned and do not hesitate to leave me a comment. I know this is my first video, and I know there are plenty of things that I can improve. So do not hesitate to let me know. Thank you very much.